Could a major move be coming for the Miami Dolphins ahead of Tuesday's NFL trade deadline on November 5th? There is talks about them potentially selling. I don't think they are going to buy, but we'll talk about the rumors and everything you need to know surrounding the trade deadline around the Miami Dolphins on today's show. Let's get into it. I am Nic Rohloff. This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. On today's show, will the Dolphins make a big move before the NFL trade deadline passes next Tuesday on November 5th? I don't anticipate anyone getting added to this roster, but could they trade a big piece away? Well, I'll tell you what, folks, if a trade does happen in any capacity, we will have you covered. So make sure you are subscribed, but make sure you also have those notifications turned on. Only 14.7% of you guys have notifications turned on. We will be the first channel to let you know a trade has happened, and when you get that notification, you're going to need to have it clicked on to all, not just personalized, so you do know when a trade goes down. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you have those notifications. But the reason why I think a selling trade could happen at the deadline is because where Miami sits in terms of the AFC. They sit all the way down there in 10th land. It's not been great. Yeah, and it should be better. It should. It's disappointing that they're 2-5 to this point. And yes, they're only 2 games back of Los Angeles for the final wild card spot right now, with the Colts and Bengals reeling. But when you really think about the schedule ahead, you have some winnable games on there, but you don't have many. Raiders and Patriots at home, you would like to think are guaranteed wins with how bad they have been, and a fully healthy Tua, hopefully still being here. But in Buffalo this week, you're staring at a loss there. Against the Rams in Week 10 on the road, it doesn't look like they're going to sell off any of their pieces. So are you really going to win against Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua and company? I don't know. And are you going to go into Lambeau in a cold November night at the end of the month on Thanksgiving? I don't know either. So right now, what's once was an easier little set of schedule, I could only count here a 2-3 stretch for Miami, if we're going to be honest. And when we're specifically talking about this week before the trade deadline, because there's only one game left before the trade deadline, and that's this week against the Buffalo Bills. And because of the history between Miami and Buffalo and going to Buffalo to play the Bills, you're staring at 2-6. And if you are 2-6, the only way you make the playoffs is if you probably rattle off 8 wins in your last 9 games to go 10-7, and I do not see that happening. So why not trade some veterans at the deadline that aren't going to be on this roster next year? Why not recoup some draft assets on day 3 to really start to try to infuse more talent to this roster? And I don't think adding to this roster is even remotely in play unless the Dolphins win on Sunday against Buffalo. And Marcel Louis Jacques, hopefully I'm saying that right, of ESPN, believes the same thing. Says he doesn't expect an addition due to the projected $4 million in cap space for Miami in 2025. And Chris Grier, if he's still here, will have to manipulate a lot of the cap and try to add more cap space for this team by contract restructures, maybe trades to infuse and sign more talent in free agency. But right now, I wouldn't anticipate a big move for the long term because of the cap space in Miami. So if you're asking me which way Miami will go at the trade deadline or before the deadline and over the next week or so, I would expect a small sell. Now, maybe a big trade could happen. If someone comes and wows you with a massive trade offer for, say, one of your top veterans, a.k.a. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Ramsey, which we'll talk about in just a second, maybe you have to consider it. But if I'm the Dolphins and you lose this game against Buffalo and you have 48 hours until the deadline, I would look to maybe trade away some of your one-year guys that could fetch you a 5th, 6th round pick, and I would call that a soft, small sell. But let me know your thoughts on the matter in today's pinned comments. If you hit with a YouTube ad break, let it play, scroll down, and answer today's question. Should the Dolphins sell at the NFL trade deadline? Type Y for yes or type N for no. We talked about what a big move, if you're selling, would be in terms of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Ramsey. I'll also throw Javon Holland into this range. Do I find it someone who is an unbelievable, massive guy? No, but I do think it would be interesting to see Javon Holland potentially on the move. And I don't see Tyreek Hill or Jalen Ramsey being moved, but we'll talk about Javon Holland specifically because he's the only one out of those three guys that might be dealt because he's a pending free agent. And if Chris Grier and company don't have a spot in the future of this organization for Javon Holland, maybe they trade him before he's a free agent because it's going to cost you maybe 15, 16 mil in free agency, or if you franchise tag him. And if you don't have the cap space to do that, nor want to do that, maybe he does get dealt. And if we're going to be honest, I went back all the way to 2019, 2020 to look at what a trade for someone of Holland's caliber would be at the deadline. Well, how about this, folks? Javon Holland, and I could confidently say this, would be the best safety traded in the National Football League since the Dolphins traded Minkah Fitzpatrick to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a first-round pick, and Jamal Adams was traded to the Seattle Seahawks for multiple first-round picks. Now, do I think Javon Holland's going to fetch a first-round pick? Absolutely not. I think he was a top 5, top 7 safety in the league right now, but he was not on Minkah Fitzpatrick's level at the time and not on Jamal Adams' level at the time because as much as we joke about Jamal, he was a top 2 safety in football when he got dealt from New York to Seattle. Plus, with him being a free agent, it's unlikely that you're going to fetch a big contract or big return. But he would be the best safety dealt since these two guys in 2018, 2019. So what would his value actually be? Stay tuned for that. I'm going to tell you what I think it is coming up in just a second. But we are sponsored by DraftKings, the #1 sportsbook and casino. And I place wagers with DraftKings every single day. The NBA is here. The NFL is here. It's a lot of fun, and I play DraftKings every day. Appreciate them hopping on board. The NBA is finally back. A new season means new ways to get into the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Who's draining threes from beyond the arc? Who's crashing the boards and grabbing rebounds? Get behind your favorite players and the prop bets you can make on DraftKings, the home of NBA player props. First time, new DraftKings customers bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Every point counts with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code HEATCHAT. That's code HEATCHAT for new customers. Get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, see dkng.co/bball. And with DraftKings, you can play any way you want. Straight bets, parlays, player props. You heard me talk about it in the NBA. You can do player props in the NFL as well. And I've already looked ahead to some fun bets on Sunday for Week 9 between Buffalo and Miami. I think it might be a disaster for the Dolphins in Buffalo. I think the Bills should be favored by more than 6 points. I'll take them -6. And you see the odds right next to each bet. I also think the Dolphins ultimately punt the football on their first drive. It's what they did. Actually, they threw an interception in their first drive against Buffalo the first time they played them. I think they punt on the first drive, and I think the Bills are the first team to score, whether it be a field goal or touchdown in the first half. Those are my 3 plays. But make sure you download DraftKings. Use code HEATCHAT. I know it's HEATCHAT, but we are sponsored over on the Heat Report. It's more of an NBA focus, but I wanted to share it with the Dolphins fans here as well. Code HEATCHAT. Get $200 in bonus bets when you place a $5 bet. All right, let's get back to Javon Holland and wrap up that conversation because what the trade value is likely in my book, if he got dealt before Tuesday deadline, is a 3rd-round pick. Now, it's because it's likely with the free agency that it would be lowered a little bit. I would not trade Javon Holland if it's a day 3 pick. I know safeties aren't the most valued position out there, but a good safety does help you quite a bit. If it's a 4th-round pick or higher, I'm out. If it's a day 2 pick, I will consider moving Holland at the deadline. Third-round pick is probably the most likely. If you get a second-round pick, you probably take it and run. I don't forecast a first-round pick happening for Javon Holland whatsoever due to his injury history over the last 2 years, as well as being a free agent in 2024. All right, we talked about the big-time sells. What would be the small sells? And these are the 4 players that come to mind for me the most. Jordan Poyer, Raheem Mostert, Calais Campbell, and Emmanuel Ogbah. We'll talk about Calais Campbell and Ogbah at the end of today's show, but we're going to talk about Raheem Mostert right now because I do view him as an expendable asset here at Miami. He's an older running back. He's 32 years old. He has not been efficient this year. You see the numbers on screen, only averaging about 3 yards a carry, 3 and a change, whatever it is. It has not been great. He has 2 touchdowns on the year so far after 18 last season, and both of those touchdowns came this past week against the Arizona Cardinals when he was brought in for short yardage situation. And when you think of what Miami has behind them, I'm very confident in what they have. If you move off of Mostert, you have Devon Achane and Jalen Wright as your next 2 backs. Jeff Wilson, who's been healthy and active over the past 3 weeks, he would assume that role as the likely short yardage back in the red zone, which is fine by me, and Alec Ingold is obviously your fullback or whatever you want to call him. But the main reason why I'm okay with trading Raheem Mostert for a day 3 pick, whether it be a 5th, 6th round pick, heck, even maybe a 4th round pick because he's been productive in the past, is because of the rookie that you drafted, Jalen Wright. And I know Omar Kelly is out there parading on Twitter that it's dumb for people to be wanting Jalen Wright over Raheem Mostert. No, Omar, I want to disagree with you. And I know you said Mostert understands blitz pickups better, the offense better, and the audibles that Tua changes the line of scrimmage. You know what? It doesn't matter if you're 2-6. The season's over, and the only way for Jalen Wright to understand them more is get him on the football field. You traded a future 3rd-round pick in 25 to get him in the 4th round in this past 24 NFL draft, and he's been your best runner of the football, averaging damn near 6 yards per carry. He's been terrific. He's been explosive. He's been agile, physical. He's been great. Why are the Dolphins not using him more? He deserves more reps. I want to see Jalen Wright on the football field more. And if the team comes calling for Raheem Mostert at the deadline and offers a 4th or a 5th, I'm absolutely moving off of him with no questions, no hesitations, rocking with Achane, Wright, and Jeff Wilson for the rest of the season, especially if you are 2-6. Or hell, even if you're 3-5, Raheem Mostert won't be the difference in you winning a playoff game. I promise you that with how Devon Achane and Jalen Wright has looked this season. All right, name someone you think the Dolphins should trade. If I had to pick the number 1 player Miami should trade, it would probably be Raheem Mostert, if I'm going to be honest. Looking like at a team like Dallas, who has really struggled this year. Zeke is cooked. Dalvin Cook is terrible. Raheem Mostert would be their RB1 right away. If they want to add to that room, they send us a 5th. We send him Raheem. I'm absolutely in. Name someone you think the Dolphins should trade. Maybe it should be one of the edge rushers or defensive linemen we mentioned earlier. I got to be honest, I would trade Calais Campbell or Emmanuel Ogbah as well. Both of them are 1-year deals. Ogbah signed right before training camp opened because Shaq Barrett retired. Calais Campbell signed earlier in the offseason, but on a Vetman 1-year deal. And guess what, folks? Calais Campbell's been your best defensive lineman, and he's been one of the best defensive linemen in all of football this season. So a team might be willing to send a 4th, 5th round pick if they're a contending team to add them for depth because he could play inside, he can play outside, he stops the run, he gets out through the quarterback, he's a behemoth of a man, and I'm a big fan of what Calais Campbell has done this season, even at age 38. And we've already seen an edge rusher get traded this deadline or before the deadline that's on a 1-year deal. Josh Uche of New England got sent to Kansas City earlier this week for a 2026 6th round pick. Uche's younger, yes, but he's on a 1-year deal, and he's been less productive than both Calais Campbell and Emmanuel Ogbah. So if you're asking me, if you were to deal one of them, or if you were to deal both of them, you would get better value for Calais Campbell and Emmanuel Ogbah in each of their respective deals. I think you'd get a pick in at least 26 or 25 better than a 6th round pick. I think Ogbah might be a 6th, but I think you could convince another team to get him a 5th if you kind of drive up his price point in a bidding war, if you will. And Calais Campbell's been so good this year, I could see him getting a 4th or 5th round pick. I get it. He's 38. It's a 1-year deal. But if it's a contender trying to go all in, but with a soft move, I think Calais Campbell could be the best defensive lineman that is on the market potentially. And I know he wants to be in Miami. He played for the Hurricanes. He loves the city, but the Dolphins, if they could recoup a 4th, 5th round pick for Calais Campbell, I think you got to take that, especially if you lose this week against Buffalo and are 2-6. All right, make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we are going to break down everything the Dolphins do before the deadline. If they make a trade, we'll have a video. If they don't make a trade, we'll break down why they didn't make a trade. Make sure you are here at the channel because we'll have you covered on everything surrounding the Miami Dolphins.